So, when Kian was born, all the nurses around me, even the lactation consultant at my hospital, told me that make sure he doesn't sleep while you're feeding him. Unlatch the moment you feel he's about to sleep, or if he falls asleep while feeding, just shake him so that he wakes up. Otherwise, aadat lag jayegi. Otherwise, you will be stuck in it forever. That he'll feed to sleep, and then you'll never be able to make him sleep in any other way.
Right.
So, can we talk about that?
This is a very common myth. Look, breastfeeding to sleep is biologically normal. It's how the human infant is designed to sleep. In fact, most mammals are designed to sleep by feeding. So the suckling motion induces sleep. It releases sleep hormones. It slows the heart rate. It calms the nervous system. Breast milk also contains sleep hormones. So this would be a very flawed design by nature if we were not supposed to feed the baby to sleep and repeatedly try to wake up this baby who is trying to fall asleep at the breast, right? Like, it defies logic. So this is completely a myth, and it arises from basically Western sleep training culture, which has driven a lot of our scientific thought and just thought around parenting for many decades now. And it's kind of seeped into India as well, but it's changing. Now, even in the West, this thought is changing. We're starting to understand the biology much better now. So it's biologically normal for babies to feed to sleep.
Okay.
It's not a habit. In fact, I feel like having t-shirts printed that say babies do not form habits, because there are lots of habits that we're going to talk about today, and none of those are bad habits. They're not habits at all. They're just biologically normal. So babies have needs. They don't have habits. They need to breastfeed to sleep. And it is the superpower that nature has given you. Why would you fight it? Right? Like, just go with it. Feed your baby to sleep. Feed your baby back to sleep. All babies eventually outgrow it. All babies eventually naturally self-wean. But at any point, you can also develop parallel methods of soothing. Babies will breastfeed to sleep with the mother. They'll get walked to sleep by the father, rocked to sleep by another caregiver. And yet, breastfeeding to sleep is completely normal. It's good for the baby. So just go with it.
So, two questions here. First, the problem with Kian specifically was that he was very colicky. So we had to burp him after breastfeeding. Otherwise, it would be a nightmare, right? He would have stomach pain and then the colicate, and it was all like a cycle, right? So what do you do in that case? Because the moment you burp them, they'll wake up probably.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, how do you deal with that? That was another, doubt we always had, that how do we actually let him breastfeed to sleep? Because we have to burp him. We can't not burp him.
Okay. So, a couple of things. Firstly, I can't say specifically in the case of Kian or a baby who is actually very, very colicky. But I do want to say that in general, breastfed babies don't need to be burped after every feed. Because this is, again, a belief that has come about because of bottle feeding. Because bottle-fed babies do need to be burped after every feed. So there's this kind of belief that that after all feeds, all babies have to be burped. Breastfed babies don't have to be burped after every feed. You can just burp them after every 2 or 3 feeds, or before the next feed, or if they seem very uncomfortable, right?
Okay.
The second thing is that very often what parents feel is that their baby is waking up because of burping is actually not that, and is actually that the baby is either very overtired and therefore is very restless and uncomfortable when they're sleeping, or it's because they've put the baby down after feeding and the baby has woken up, which you can't do during daytime naps. They have to be held during daytime naps. So sometimes addressing these two things actually removes the burping issue as well. But if this is actually one of those rare cases, like the small percentage of cases where it's actually a colic issue or a burp issue and the baby actually needs to be burped, in that case, there's not much you can do. You have to burp the baby to sleep and then rock the baby to sleep. after that. But it should not take long. It should be 5 minutes of rocking.
Yeah.
If you've got the timing right, if the baby has just nursed before that, it should just be 5 minutes of rocking.
Yeah, I think the problem with us was that because we were told not to breastfeed to sleep, I was keeping a gap of 30-40 minutes between feeds and actually putting him to sleep.
Yeah.
So we would burp him, play with him, and then rock him to sleep, and then it was just like, oh God, he's not sleeping now. What do I do?
Yeah.
And then there's also this thing about feeding every 2 hours, and that
that's
you
also a
shouldn't
bottle feeding
feed
thing.
more often and stuff. So
Yeah.
that again used to cause a lot of problems for us. But anyways, that's a story for another day. So again, like my next question was around this only, what you just mentioned, that the child, the moment you put them to bed, after let's say feeding them to sleep or rocking them to sleep, they'll just wake up.
Yeah.
It's like clockwork.
Yeah.
There are also these memes that, people are putting their child to sleep very carefully in the cot and then they move away and then they wake up. I don't know if you've seen them.
Yeah,
so
I have.
How do you think, is it even possible for someone to hold their child for sleep for every nap?
Yeah.
What you just mentioned, like how is that even possible?
Yeah.
It just seems like a golly task.
I know. So the thing is that we need to understand that human babies, we're mammals, right? And we're designed to sleep on our parents. So if you think about like a gorilla or a monkey or a chimpanzee, the baby will always be sleeping on the parent. You'll never find a gorilla baby sleeping on some leaf somewhere, right? The gorilla mom will always be holding the baby. And at the end of the day, we share 99% of our DNA with gorillas, and our babies are just like that little gorilla baby. Now, the thing is, human babies are actually born very early in the gestation process. So that's because when we evolved millions of years ago from walking on 4 legs to walking on 2 legs, our pelvis became very narrow. And in order for our large human baby heads to fit through the narrow pelvis of a biped, the baby had to be born very early in the gestation process. So scientists theorize that the human pregnancy would actually need to be 18 to 21 months long versus the current 9 months for our babies to be born at the same level of maturity and development and gestation as other mammal babies, right? So if you think 18 to 21 months versus 9 months, that's almost the entire first year that the baby is not even ready to be out of the womb as yet. And what is the closest thing to the womb? It's not a swaddle, it's not a cradle, it is the body of the parent. So it's when the baby feels our touch, feels our warmth, smells us, hears our heartbeat, hears our digestive juices, that is when they get that womb-like feeling and their nervous system calms down and they feel at rest and able to sleep. And they seek that because they need that womb-like care to further gestate, grow and develop. So our body is like a charger for them. So they're designed to seek that contact. At night, they get it through bed sharing because our body forms a kind of bubble around them, which is like an incubator where they grow and develop. During the day, it comes through contact. That's why even premature babies are recommended kangaroo mother care.
Yeah.
Instead of being in an incubator, you can put the baby on the mother who will also grow and gestate the baby. But the fact is, all human babies are premature, right? So they need that contact. It's also a survival instinct. Now, again, if you think back to prehistoric times, if a baby was put down, the baby would not be safe. So they could be picked up by a predator or left to starve. So an evolutionary survival instinct developed that if I'm put down, I wake up and I have to be held by the parent. So thousands of years ago, the solution that humans found was slings and wraps.
Yeah.
So the baby would always be wrapped to the mother, to the front or to the back, and would feed and sleep on demand. That is still what happens in a lot of communities, right? In a lot of our communities in India as well, in villages, on farms, right? And many tribes all over the world. Now, so that's an option. Baby wearing is always an option. But yes, babies do need holding. They do need contact in order to sleep. Now, it doesn't have to be done only by the mother. It can be done by the mother, by the father, a grandparent, a hired caregiver. Any committed caregiver can do it. It can be distributed between caregivers as well. In many cases, I have found that it is only the mother who does it. And then other caregivers pitch in during wake windows, which is another way of handling it. But frankly, both in India and abroad, I also know cases where it's only the mother at home and she's handling both contact naps and wake windows. Even then, it works out. I would say where there's a will, there's a way. We work it out,
Yeah.
And the reason we do it is not because we're just very silly or, or obsessed with our baby's sleep or anything, but simply because there is no alternative. If you don't hold your baby for naps, you're going to have a fussy and cranky baby who is not completing their sleep, who is getting overtired, who is waking up 100 times in the night, who doesn't have a predictable schedule, right? And in fact, when you hold them and they start having a predictable routine through the day, taking good naps, waking up happy, being easy to manage during wake windows, waking up much less at night, the net effect is actually a benefit. Like
Yeah.
the amount of time and energy actually reduces through holding for naps versus not doing so. So I think that is what parents actually find when they do it. When you think about it, you feel, oh my God, how will this happen?
Yeah. It's scary.
Yeah. But it's like anything, right? Like if you're going to start a fitness routine,
Yeah.
or you're going to start a new, a new lifestyle with regard to food. I don't want to call it a diet, but just a new way of eating, right? Initially, it seems very daunting. But when you do it and you start seeing the benefit of it, suddenly it's not so difficult anymore. In fact, a lot of parents start to really enjoy it, and they really appreciate that time with their baby, that oxytocin rush from holding the baby. You find ways to become very productive even while holding for naps. I mean, I know people who have built whole businesses while holding for naps, So it's a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
And I would say that if it's something that you're struggling with, seek help. Because very often you need someone to just show you a different perspective, problem solve it for you, show you the benefit. Because otherwise you'll kind of remain stuck in the zone of, my baby's not sleeping but I don't want to hold for naps. My baby's not sleeping but I don't want to hold for naps. So I think that should be addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about naps, let's go a little deeper into that. And firstly, I want to talk about why are naps important?
Yeah.
Why is it that I need to put my baby to sleep so often during the day, especially in the early months? What happens there?
So, like I mentioned, the quality of sleep is actually different between daytime naps and night sleep. So, the growth and development that's happening during naps is different than what's happening at night. There are studies that have been done with babies, toddlers, preschoolers, where there are two groups of babies. One group takes a nap and the other doesn't take the nap. And they've all done a new activity before the nap. Now, it's been found repeatedly that the group that took the nap processed the learning from that activity a lot better than the group that didn't take the nap. And that's because neural connections are formed during sleep. Short-term memory is converted into long-term memory during sleep. So those naps actually do help with cognition, with cognitive development, right? But naps are also important because babies need sleep, right? They need a whole lot of sleep. So if you say that a 2-month-old needs 17 hours of sleep, 17 to 18 hours of sleep, that's not going to happen in one long stretch at night, right? Yeah. It's going to happen in about 11 hours at night plus 6 to 7 hours during the day. Similarly, a 9-month-old will need 11 hours at night and 4 hours during the day. So it's not going to happen in one long stretch at night. And naps are also important because babies need frequent breaks. They need rest. They have a battery life and then they need to recharge. They have a battery life, then they need to recharge, right? And if they're awake beyond their battery life, which we generally call a wake window, they get overtired. And when they get overtired, their body releases cortisol, which is a stress hormone, which is actually meant to then prop them up and keep them awake because they're tired. But then that propping up and keeping them awake actually literally keeps them awake. Like they're not able to sleep after that, right? And it disturbs their sleep and it accumulates through the day and it disturbs their night sleep as well. So they not only need those timely break. So the wake window needs to be correct. We need to observe for early sleep cues, not late sleep cues. But they also need complete naps. So it's not enough to just put them to bed and like put them down, or, not support the nap and then the baby just wakes up in 40 minutes. You need to ensure a complete nap. Like, we have to look at each nap like we're recharging a cell phone. It has to reach 100%. If it gets unplugged at 50%, we have to plug it back in, because otherwise the battery life is affected. So in the next wake window, the cortisol production starts early. So we do need timely naps, long, deep, restorative naps. It's very good for the baby's health and development, and their quality of sleep, their overnight sleep as well. It just magically transforms. So it's very, very worth that investment, right?
So what are some sleep cues that you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
You said something about early sleep cues and late sleep cues.
Yeah.
So what would that look like in a
Okay,
baby?
so let's say you have a 6-month-old whose wake window is around 2 hours, right? I do want to say as a caveat that wake windows are not equal through the day.
Yeah.
They're shortest at the beginning of the day, they get longer as the day progresses, and longest at the end of the day. But just for this example, let's say you have a 6-month-old whose wake window is 2 hours. At about 1 hour 40 minutes, the baby will show you early sleep cues, which are things like rubbing eyes, rubbing ears, pulling hair, looking a little glazed, averting the gaze, losing interest in toys. It's like a little haze that comes over the baby, a little slowing down, and it's there for just a minute or two. Now, if you spot those cues and you immediately pick up the baby, take her into a dark and quiet room, nurse her to sleep or rock her to sleep, she will fall asleep easily and she will sleep well. But if you miss those cues and that 2-hour wake window closes, right, that deadline is crossed, now suddenly she'll look very awake.
Yeah.
Like very playful, active, alert, even hyperactive. And you'll be like, okay, she's not tired, she's fine, right? And people around you will say, why are you taking her to sleep?
Yeah.
She's playing right now.
Yeah.
But what has actually happened is that cortisol has been released. It's like a cup of coffee being served by your body saying, okay, you're tired, here's a cup of coffee. And imagine what would happen to a baby with a cup of coffee, right? So they become very active. This
Yeah.
is called the second wind. Now, by the time it's 2.5 hours, they'll start showing you late cues. They'll start getting fussy and cranky. That's when we usually say, oh, the baby's tired, let's take her to sleep.
Yeah.
But now she will not sleep. She'll be fussy at the breast, fussy with the bottle. It'll take endless rocking and walking. She might cry. You might give up. You might start again. Eventually, she'll crash out and go to sleep.
Yeah.
But the damage has been done. A lot of cortisol has been released. So that nap also won't go well. She'll wake up early from it. And then because she's woken up early from it, there's more cortisol production. So then this cortisol production goes on through the day and it disturbs night sleep. Right? So it goes from early sleep cues to second wind to late sleep cues. So we need to know how to identify early sleep cues, and it helps to know the general wake window.
Yeah.
So that you're not like left doing guesswork on it.
While doing all these things, following sleep cues, following wake windows, how can I still ensure that my child is having a good sleep environment for naps?
Yeah. Okay, so after the age of 3 months, babies become very aware of their surroundings, right? So they're very distracted, very easily stimulated. Their brain is now a sponge and they're actually seeking stimulation. They're little curiosity machines, right? So their job is now to look for stimulation in their environment and process it. But this can seriously hamper sleep because they're not able to switch off their brain to go to sleep, right? So they want to just keep going. They're like little energizer bunnies. They want to keep going and they want to keep looking for stimulation. So we need to help them with that by removing that stimulation, right? By making the room dark and quiet. Babies are very sensitive to sound. So one thing that parents say often to me is that my baby is a very light sleeper.
Yeah.
And my baby wakes up at the smallest sound. This is completely normal. Babies do wake at the smallest sound. They do wake with even a little bit of light in the room and visibility in the room. If there's light and visibility in the room, the baby will sleep, but at the late stage of tiredness, not at the early stage of tiredness, right? And they are susceptible to waking up very easily during that nap. So we need a pitch dark and quiet room along with contact, along with the right wake window in order for our babies to sleep well. And remember that our circadian rhythms form between 2 and 4 months.
Yeah.
So there's no day-night confusion after that. The baby knows what is day and what is night. The quality of sleep during the day is completely different from the quality of sleep at night, and the baby is not going to confuse the two. So it's absolutely fine to give them a very dark room to sleep in so that you get those good naps. It's also okay to use white noise. Don't blast it in their ear, but at a slight distance. It should sound like a natural sound, like a shower on in the bathroom, or it's raining outside, or just the AC is on or an air purifier is on and you have that little shh sound. It's not mandatory,
Yeah.
but if you feel that there are little ambient sounds that you want to mask, it's helpful. You can also play music. Not overnight, I would say. It's okay to soothe your baby. Music is like very effective to soothe your baby
Okay.
before naps or before bedtime. You can leave it on during naps. Don't leave it on overnight. But again, to mask little sounds, you can leave it on during the day as well. But definitely a pitch dark room during the day and at night. No night light either.